In a Vietnam jungle in 1968, the hell of war is about to unfold.
You could smell the thickness in the air.
A Marine unit from Hawaii is under fire.
We were completely overwhelmed.
The enemy, 700 strong, is closing in.
They were booby-trapping our booby traps.
Among the Marines defending his life, William McGonigle, Billy they called him, a 19-year-old from Wichita. Like 11 others on that hill, Billy was overpowered, then fell to the enemy. His death, however, was more than a statistic. It began decades of nightmares for dozens of people, all because Billy and those 11 others were left behind.
I still think about it to this day.
Still thinks about the life of a soldier he watched die and about the dignity he wants so desperately for a fallen friend.
We were trained to be the greatest fighting machine, but we weren't trained to retrieve bodies.
October 27, 1948, Billy McGonigle is born in Wichita, Kansas. His mother opts to give birth at home, a mistake she realizes when Billy is born past due and not breathing.
Pretty soon he sneezed and started breathing. You never saw one happy doctor of it. But he come the next day to see about me, and he said, I didn't think you or that baby was going to live through the night.
Billy does grow into a healthy boy, living a typical adolescent life. When his mother is sick and money is tight, Billy is just the kind to pitch in.
Doctor called in a prescription for me. And I said, well, we can't get it till Tuesday when I get paid because I don't have the money. And he said, oh, Mama, go over there and use my money.
In 1967, Billy McGonigle graduates Wichita's South High School. Almost immediately, he sets his mind on the Marines.
I said, you're going to have to sit down and think about things, and if it feels right in your heart, well, you do it. But I said, just remember, if it goes wrong, you have to pay the consequences too.
I just figured that he was doing the right thing and be proud of him doing it. He'd do what he wanted to do.
With that, Billy is shipped off to Hawaii. War, though, continues in Vietnam, and Billy is eager to go.
Well, he wore real thick glasses, and they didn't want to send him over to Vietnam because of that.
But Billy persists and is eventually cleared to serve. To a mother, proud feelings are shadowed by fear.
I was worried when he went over there. I was hoping to get back, but I don't know, I just had the feeling when he left that we'd never see him again.
To his fellow Marines, Billy was a welcome addition.
He wasn't over boisterous. You know, he was the type of kid that just kind of blended in with everybody. You know.
For David Fuentes, the most vivid memories of Billy come in the heat of war. The unit must protect Allied camps along the Laotian border.
We were sent down there to provide artillery support for what we anticipated was going to be an attack. What we did not know at the time was in which direction that attack was going to come from.
For that reason, a team is strategically placed on a hill set to defend a camp at Nak Tervak.
One Marine in particular went back into a bunker and started crying. Got in a fetal position and cried, I don't want to go up there, I don't want to die. Well, Billy says, well, I'll go.
A broken toe does not stop Billy from joining the team. The Marines move out, knowing they're all but guaranteed deadly combat.
Everybody was afraid, but not too many people would admit they were afraid because you could smell the thickness in the air. We haven't bathed for a couple weeks, and we were running short on water.
The nights drone on. The dirty mission in a remote jungle becomes war in itself. On May 10th, 1968, it is a test even for the staunchest Marines.
The enemy, they know when you're weak, and they knew that we were tired, and we slacked off that night. Everybody kind of relaxed. I actually took my boots off that night. See?
At 2 a.m., bullets fly as if the enemy knew just when to strike. The reality was U.S. forces had little chance.
We were completely overwhelmed by numerically superior forces, and we were in such a remote jungle hilltop location very near the Laotian border that we couldn't get out.
Still, the Marines hold their ground. Private First Class Billy McGonigle mans a post on the front line.
He went right to his outpost where he was at. He stood his ground. He didn't move 1 inch.
Severely outnumbered, the fight now seems futile. One by one, Marines are getting hit. Billy McGonigle struggles to hold his ground.
He's shooting one moment and standing up and shooting, And next moment he got hit. Now he got hit somewhere in the upper torso, but he went out real quick.
Fuentes fights his way to Billy, hoping somehow he can still be saved.
You run over to see if there's something you can do for him, but he was gone. There was nothing you can do for him, you know.
By 8 a.m., orders are given to retreat. Helicopters arrive to evacuate first the wounded, then the dead. 12 bodies in all, including Billy McGonigle's.
Now, we tried to take the bodies out, and his body was brought up to the LZ. But before they let us put any bodies on there, they start shooting our helicopters.
The choppers are disabled. The evacuation failed. The Marines must now get out on their own feet. With no other choice, the dead are left behind.
If they would have ordered us, or if we could have carried the dead with us, but there was no way we could, because we had to march through a jungle. There was, you know, trees and underbrush, and you got leeches crawling up all over you. And
it is a life-saving journey, with deadly U.S. airstrikes falling behind them. The fire so close it singes the hair. Still, though, there is chill at the thought that 12 dedicated servicemen lay somewhere on their own.
You never leave anybody behind, but when it's hopeless as it was there, it was totally hopeless. There was no way you're going to get their bodies out. The best we could have did was get their dog tags.
Back in Wichita, a mother's fear is soon confirmed.
And I started screaming and running towards that Marine officer. I said, is he dead or is he hurt?
Her sadness matched by Billy's comrades. Only for them it comes in the form of guilt. Guilt that will linger for years until it motivates grown men to return to war.
We don't leave our dead on the battlefield. We don't leave our dead on the battlefield.
On a jungle floor at Noctavok, Billy McGonigle is under heavy fire. With bullets and mortar all around, there is no time to think, nor to realize that Billy never had to be on that hill in the first place.
After he broke his toe, hurt his foot, they wanted to send him back to medics and probably send him back to the States, but he wouldn't go.
Nobility, however, will prove no comfort as Billy's parents learn their son is gone.
Well, she opened the door and this Marine officer come in and this priest come in with him, and I knew something bad was going on. And I started screaming and running towards that Marine officer. I said, is he dead or is he hurt?
Actually, he is neither. At least officially, Billy is ruled missing in action.
It's always hard on you when you lose a member of the family, even if you know what's going to happen.
What made it worse was that for the next 15 years, there would be no word on what happened to Billy. Even so, the McGonigles bought a gravesite in the hope that someday their son would come home.
You just don't know what to do. You want him back, and yet you don't know if he's coming back. It's just a nightmare, really.
As Billy's family cried out loud, his former comrades were holding it in. The horror of that day somehow living inside them.
After I got out of the Marine Corps, I lived with the guilt of my buddies being left behind.
Tim Brown was medevaced out back then, just before the battle at Noctavok. At home in 1970, Brown is flipping through the Marine Corps magazine, Leatherneck.
And as fate would have it, in 1970, Grace and Harry McGonigle, the parents of Billy McGonigle, was running an ad or a locator looking for someone that might have known their son.
Tim responds in this letter. He discovers the McGonigles are under the impression their son is MIA and could possibly be alive.
Which then began to trigger a curiosity about, well, why was this misinformation being told to the families about how these Marines really died?
That sends Tim Brown on a quest for the truth. He looks for other Marines who served at Noctavok and any documentation the military will release. The process, however, is slow. It's not till the late 80s, when Brown becomes an officer with the Vietnam Vets of America, that his quest would become a mission to repair history. Brown knows that his fallen comrades still lay in that battlefield and that he must go back to Vietnam.
With the hope and with the firm belief that if they did so, that we might have a chance at recovering some remains and bring our brothers home.
Bring them home for mothers like Grace McGonigle, who still could not say what happened to her firstborn son.
And wondering, I know he either had to be dead or be a prisoner, because if he was out where he could get a hold of a phone, he would have called me, because we were that close.
With guilt in tow, Tim Brown and a handful of other Marines returned to Vietnam in 1995. Their goal? To revisit the battle site at Ngoc Travac. For now, though, the Vietnamese say no, that the abandoned field is much too dangerous.
To be 8 kilometers away from where it all happened and not be allowed to go there, I just would not accept that.
With Brown is John White, the Australian commander of Allied forces at Ngoc Travac. As the men plan their strategy, they know, even if they are let in, retracing their steps will be impossible. That is, without the Vietnamese soldiers they once tried to kill.
I think one of the main reasons I came on this trip was to meet the commander of the force that opposed us.
Not just meet him, but thank him. White gets his wish when the opposing commander agrees to meet.
This man did have the opportunity of killing everyone on that hill if he put his mind to it. As it was, when the medical evacuation helicopters came in, someone somewhere gave the order that all firing was to stop, and I suspect it'll be the man I'm meeting today.
A life-changing event resurrected with a simple meeting. For Tim Brown, it is all just minutes away.
I'm overwhelmed with the prospects of meeting a former enemy.
Once on opposite ends of a gun barrel, the men now sit on opposite ends of a conference table. Their mission this time? Simply to heal.
It is a time to let go of the past and look to the future.
White warms up to the Vietnamese commander, explaining that both sides have something to gain.
One of the main troubles with letting go of the past is resolving a major issue of the war, and that is what happened to your soldiers and our soldiers who are missing or whose bodies were not recovered.
The commander seems convinced the Vietnamese will open the battlefield, in turn burying hard feelings of the past.
So now we think of you not as enemy as before. Now we receive you as friends.
The reception is historic. 27 years after Ngoc Travac, these men will return to the hill where they first met. The violence they've hid ever since.
This is a combat boot right here, guys.
Returning to life as the search for the dead begins.
It was very emotional. I mean, I broke down a couple of times, I'll be quite honest with you, you know, because a lot of sad things happened. A lot of people died in that valley.
The jungle of Vietnam is not where these men would choose to hike. It is a journey, however, they've made once before. Only in 1968 it was to save their lives, to avoid enemy fire and U.S. airstrikes after the battle at Ngoc Travac.
It was very emotional. I mean, I broke down a couple of times, I'll be quite honest with you, you know, because a lot of sad things happened. A lot of people died in that valley.
12 of the dead are on Tim Brown's hands, or at least that's the way he sees it. So 27 years later, he's back here, hoping to right the wrongs of the past.
And I had to live with the guilt of that all these years, and I felt like I needed to be there. I thought maybe I could make a difference.
A difference for the family of Billy McGonigle, one of the Marines left on the jungle floor. His body abandoned when rescue attempts failed.
And you try to go on with your life, and yet I don't know, you still think about that.
After years of research, Tim Brown leads a modest group of others on a quest to Ngoc Travac. With them are the Vietnamese soldiers they once opposed. The journey, 6.5 hours by truck and then foot.
One of the most heavily infested areas in all of the country with unexploded ordnance, as well as snakes. Snakes were a real problem.
We knew they had forces all around here, and we knew they had ambushes there.
Once at the battle site, old enemies compare notes, working together to piece together what happened and why.
In the ground, they drew their positions, and they discussed the tactics of the battle and how many of them hit us, where they hit us, how they did this. We did the same.
Slowly, history came into view. Their efforts produced more than just memories, as the battlefield is surprisingly intact.
The hood of our old truck was still there with USMC on it. There was all kinds of unexploded ordnance, grenades, mortars, all over the place.
Nobody won and nobody lost. Everybody lost.
In a modest circle, the survivors gather. They hold a makeshift service to honor the dead.
Hundreds of young men, Vietnamese, Chinese, Americans, lost their lives here.
Hàng trăm những thanh niên trẻ, người Việt, người Mỹ, người Úc đã mất đi ở đây.
And it's for that moment that we are here to remember them.
To remember in words and actions. First, the Vietnamese are honored with a customary tradition.
There is a ceremony with corn pollen, which I have here, that if we sprinkle, then their spirits will be with their families.
Next, the American forces are remembered with a toast. It brings the first tears from the American men who never expected to be here again.
Welcome home, brother. Welcome home.
By the end of the day, hearts have begun to heal, but the journey is far from over. The visit here has brought hope and knowledge that a formal dig could produce results. The Marines return to the U.S. to spread the news.
With the hope and with the firm belief that if they did so, that we might have a chance at recovering some remains and bring our brothers home.
For the family of Billy McGonigle, Tim Brown has a special gift, a bag of dirt from Nachtavak. For now, it is the best he can do.
Sealed shut and said that'd be all be the nearest we'd ever get from Billy, but we still held some hopes we might get something.
From that moment on, Tim Brown put pressure on those here in Washington. His goal, to get the U.S. government to authorize a full excavation of the site, resurrecting his fallen comrades, and in turn replacing them on that Vietnamese hill with 3 decades of his own guilt. 3 years would pass, but Washington finally agrees to fund the dig. In 1998, military officials oversee a full-scale search of the site.
As it turned out, there was no direct bombing on the position where the bodies were left. And that, to me, was miraculous.
The dig spans 2 years, slowed by the relentless jungle weather. In the end, it is just what Tim Brown hoped. Teeth, bones, and personal effects, all found under 5 feet of muddy jungle. The news is relayed to Brown over the phone.
After I hung the phone up, quite honestly, I was in my bedroom when I took the call, and I was away from the rest of the family at the time, and I had a good cry. I had a lot of pent-up emotions.
Among the items found, the eyeglasses of Billy McGonigle and his military billfold with identification inside.
I was happy to see it in a way, and another way I didn't, because it made me think, well, I'm going to have to say he's dead, and I didn't want to.
For Billy's mother, it is a shock to the system. After 3 decades of denial, the idea that her son is dead is finally real.
He means everything to me, and he still does. I don't care if he is dead, he still means everything to me.
The dig in Vietnam by no means closed the book for the McGonigles, nor for the U.S. government. Billfolds and eyeglasses were not remains, but bones and teeth were. They were sent to a military lab in Hawaii.
I believe that we have achieved the fullest possible accounting of these men in this particular incident.
That accounting led to 4 years of forensic work. DNA is extracted from the remains and matched to samples offered by family members. There is a problem though. The bones are so old and weathered, they yield no DNA. Only the teeth are useful, and only 5 Marines are positively ID'd. Billy McGonigle is not one of them, and that leaves some doubt for his Wichita family.
Would you want to bury your son that way, not knowing there's anything there of his?
Though the McGonigles have doubts, others do not. Tim Brown is convinced, while science may not prove it, Billy's remains are among those found.
And I know Billy. I knew Billy real well, and he thought very highly of his parents, and he talked of his parents often. And I've told Grace and Harry this throughout the years, that Billy would not want them to suffer and to be upset anymore.
Soon, Billy will have his own say. Soon, he will be back on U.S. soil. And soon, the dignity he was denied would find him once and for all. A sacred burial is on its way in the most sacred of U.S. cemeteries. There, 37 years of violence, guilt, sorrow, and hope all come together for a hero's farewell.
Billy's at peace now. He's at rest, and now he's home.
When Billy McGonigle left Wichita in 1967, it would be the last time he'd set foot in the city. On October 7th, 2005, he wouldn't come home, but Billy would be closer than he ever was before. Local veterans raise money so Billy's parents can be at Arlington Cemetery for his burial.
I almost went to the floor. I couldn't believe it, people cared that much. But we got enough money that our whole family can go to Washington and pay the airplane tickets in the room.
Her joy cannot hide a mother's reluctance. Grace McGonigle has yet to accept that her son is gone.
Well, I hope it don't make me feel like he's dead. I'm hoping so, because I have just never have felt inside that he was dead.
Unsure how they'll feel, the McGonigles head to Washington. There, they expect to meet for the first time with the Marines who fought alongside Billy at Knock Travaq. First, though, they'll stand in a slow drizzle. As their son is finally laid to rest.
Sad, you know it is when they're putting away 12 boys.
Tears come to a mother and father, feeling every range of emotion.
And I've been through so much over the 37.5 years till I guess it just all hit me all of a sudden.
As Billy is laid to rest, the despair and doubt his family endured are buried with him. The shrinking burden of a fallen son gives way to honor and admiration.
And they kneeled down by the coffin, put that flag on the coffin, and then brought it to us. And it was really nice.
Standing quietly nearby are the Marines who watched Billy die. This time, they are here to see him home.
You stand there in the rain, and you just praise him. So you wish you had had a chance to see life like some of us did, because there's more to life than the last thing he's seen.
And although I saw tears, I didn't see tears of sadness today. I saw tears of joy. I saw tears of relief. I shed a few of my own, but not as much as I have in the past, because for me, this is also the end of the Vietnam War after 37 years.
To Billy's family, just as important as his burial is meeting with those who saw him die, answering lifelong questions Billy's parents held for so long.
He didn't suffer, and he died instantly and didn't suffer. And we know his spirit's in a good place.
With that, in the grace of God, Grace and Harry can now begin to heal and accept the loss of their son and know that he's now home and has had a dignified, respectable burial in his homeland.
I don't cry so much like I used to. And I just hope no other mother has to go through something like this. It's terrible. People don't realize how bad it is.
The denial is gone, and for that, Grace McGonigle is thankful, forever indebted to the men who never gave up.
I just want the people to know that I thank them for all their support, because I know there was a lot of them behind us.
One of them was Tim Brown, motivated by pain, memories, and most of all, guilt.
The guilt's gone. The guilt's gone.
Gone, as Brown is able to stand in Arlington and watch history repaired. The damage in his heart finally undone.
I now believe, and maybe it's just my own thinking, but I believe that I was spared for a reason, and that reason is very clear today. Somebody had to be the catalyst to get other people to do what they did, and I think that I may have been the person that God chose to do that.
It was Billy McGonigle's heroic deed that opened this 37-year tale of devotion. That heroism never died when Billy did. Instead, it was passed on to the men who brought him home.
Billy's at peace now. He's at rest, and now he's home. He's in the United States, and he's in the most sacred place that a military man who gave his life for his country can be, at Arlington Cemetery.